correct? Okay.
Yes.
All right, with me I have Counselor Hogan, Counselor Majuk, Counselor Nave, Counselor Caldwell, Counselor Williams, Counselor Monto, and Counselor Peniagua. So we will go into the land bank's budget, past and present. Want to introduce?
Thank you for having us. I'm Caitlin Wright. I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Syracuse Land Bank, and I'm joined by Luke Avery Doherty, who is our Chief Financial Officer. And I'll note, which I think everybody's aware of, that Pat Hogan, in addition to being on the council, is also our board chairman. So I don't know which hat you're wearing today, Pat. Yes, no questions from you. So I understand that there is $750,000 in the budget this year as a special object of expense for the land bank. Is that correct? I didn't double check the number before I came in here. Okay. The last 2 years, we have received $1.25 million from the city. The funding that we receive from the city each year goes to cover general operations expenses, things like lawn mowing, board ups, insurance, et cetera. We do get grant money from the county as well, and from New York State, and some from the federal government. The state and federal grants are all to fund very specific projects. So if it's for X number of demolitions, we take that grant money in, we do as many as we have money for, and that's booked as income and expense that year, and it zeroes out, nets out to zero. The maintenance expenses and obligations that we have, we really don't have a choice in. We have an inventory of about 800 properties. They have to be maintained. And it costs about $2 million a year just to keep the land bank running before you start looking at all those grant-funded capital expenses like demolitions and renovations and stabilization projects. We have historically generated about half of what we need to cover our annual operating expenses through the sale of real estate. And the other half, we have to turn to the city and the county for financial assistance to keep the land bank operating. I've handed you a collection of handouts here. One of them is this table that shows, going back all the way to fiscal year 2010 through the present, how the land bank working with the city has helped to make you guys a better collector of delinquent taxes. So yes, the city funds us every year, and that is an expense in your budget. But because we have a very robust land bank that is the default recipient of all tax foreclosed properties, it has made the city a better collector of delinquent receivables than you were historically. So you can see here at the bottom of this page, if you include the $750 that's budgeted this year, it'll come up to a grand total of $12.5 million in funding directed to the land bank. But we have an increase of $34 million in collections that is above historical levels. So if we're only looking at delinquent tax collections, it is a net positive for the city to keep the land bank running, because if we weren't there to accept foreclosed properties, then when you send out foreclosure notices, you'd be back where you were in 2010, where everybody knows they can ignore them because the city's just crying wolf. So by creating the land bank and making us the default recipient of all those tax foreclosed properties, it made the threat of foreclosure real, and it got a lot of people to come in and pay their taxes. Now, that's a good thing. The other half that are truly abandoned properties that don't pay, they do end up coming to the land bank. We are able to maintain those at a lower cost than the city has historically. It's cheaper for us to pick up trash, do board ups, do lawn mowing than it is for the city. And prior to the foreclosure, that property was getting sent tax bills and also getting sent bills for the city providing those services. And they weren't paying their taxes. They also weren't paying for those other services. So it's financially beneficial to the city to pay us to do the things that you were doing already, but cheaper. Then once we take those properties and get them repositioned and sold, they go back on the tax rolls. So we've sold almost 1,500 properties since the land bank was first started, and those are generating about $2.6 million a year in local property taxes. Not to mention, when we sell these properties, they're usually fixer-uppers that are sold to local, vetted, responsible buyers. They're creating construction jobs, they're generating sales tax, buying construction materials. It's generating a lot of economic activity above and beyond the amount of money that you budget for the land bank each year. So all of these positive benefits are, generating economic growth. The only one of those that we capture is from the sale of the real estate. So that's why we need some extra help.
So I think I'm correct. You can correct me, Councilor Williams, but the last 2 years, the mayor's budget came to us with 750, and we amended with an extra 500. It definitely last year.
Just last year.
The year before, I can't remember. But,
Yeah, one year it was at your
okay.
change, the other year it
So we did it
wasn't.
last year.
Yeah.
So assuming with the gigantic hole in the budget this year that we can't do that extra 500,000, where do you cut? What do you do?
Well, we really can't cut a lot. We have an obligation to mow the lawns, to pick up trash. If we don't do it, you're going to ticket me and you're going to bill me for it. So we don't really have that luxury. We will end up eating into our own fund balance. We have enough cash on hand right now to cover about 9 months of operating expenses. If we're funded at this level of $750,000, I would expect this time next year we will have used up a bit of that fund balance and we'll have enough to cover 5 or 6 months of operating expenses.
Caitlin, so 2 quick questions. How many houses do you have officially now?
We have about 150 structures in our inventory right now.
And structures, what about just land?
About 650.
So 250.
150 buildings, 650 lots,
You have,
800 properties total.
you have 800 total, okay. And 650 vacant lots?
Yes. Ballpark.
Of the 150, how many are tear downs?
About 100.
100 of the 150?
Just about.
Okay, so,
But we're making significant progress there. We've taken down 650 to date, and the number of vacant buildings in the city has actually been reduced by about 44% since the land bank started.
so the other question is, so since, at one point in time, the land bank was charging people a little less for housing. Now it's going up a little bit more, like, some of the houses are like 25, 40. What is, like, why, and what are you doing with that, like, revenue?
Property values have increased significantly in Syracuse in the past 5 years. So when we price a house, we look at how much is it going to cost to bring it up to code, and what'll it be worth when it's done? And we try to back that out to come up with a reasonable sales price that gives a little bit of wiggle room so the buyers will have some equity when they're done with the renovations.
And then, okay. That makes sense. Now, the other question is, what about, people who are purchase homes go through the process with you at Land Bank. Once they get the home, and if they don't finish the project, you guys, sometimes you're charging people monthly rent, right? And how do we do that, and where's that money going?
So it goes to cover our legal fees. So when we sell a property, we use something called a development enforcement mortgage. We put a lien on the property and they sign a mortgage agreement at the closing that says, I promise to complete X attached scope of work within X period of time. It's usually 12 to 18 months. If they fail to complete that work within 18 months or whatever the time allotted is, then they're in default on that development enforcement mortgage and we could move to foreclose on them. I don't want to foreclose on somebody who's 80% of the way there. They're making an effort. We want to help them finish. So we often will work with them to help them find additional financing, better contractors if they're having issues with their contractors, various grants that are available. But we also charge a monthly fee for extending the deadline on that enforcement mortgage. It's $250 a month if you're an owner-occupant, $500 a month if you're an investor. We don't charge it if the reasons for the delay are really outside of their control. We've had some weird cases. But the idea is that it provides an incentive for people to finish the project. We put that policy in place in April of 2019 because we had a whole bunch of people that were behind schedule on their development enforcement mortgages, and they seemed to have no real desire to wrap up the projects and get done. And we view it as we have an obligation to the neighbors. We've promised that we're going to fix these properties up or sell them to responsible people who will fix them up, and we want to make sure that that is done in a timely manner.
I definitely understand your sentiment, but my only issue with that is, here at the city, we haven't gotten too many projects done in 12 to 18 months itself, right? Every time we come around, there's an extension, extension. It's sort of hard to tell the people who are, trying to be in the neighborhood. Some of them are getting different grants or waiting on a contractor to finish something in their hands to say, guess what, here's an extra $500, like, to pay. That's the only, I've been getting, it's a little hard, especially ever since COVID. It is so hard to get a contractor to actually do some work in the time, right? Between materials, prices, and just work. We got 1,001 things going on. So that's my concern with that. There's people who are trying to move into the homes or really trying their best, but then they're getting another hit of 500 that's out of their control.
Caitlin, you mentioned this, right, but we
And where
do
does that
arrange
fit into
no
their-
fee extensions for certain types of hardships. We did that during COVID. We gave people, extensions, pretty much automatically, but that was a different story. But I know that you and Terry work closely with them to, I send out the invoices, so I know they tell me often that, that we're going to give them a certain, no-cost extension for various extenuating circumstances. So I think we're sensitive to that.
Yeah, we really try
because we
to,
want the project to get done is
Yeah.
the real goal.
if
not
it's
to
really
just-
outside of their control, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the cost of a tear down right now, about ballpark, single-family structure?
32,000.
Into their, If we can, I'm sorry, I just had a question back on that, that fee. Where does that fit into your revenue budget? Is that included in there at all?
Which sheet are you looking at?
Oh, I'm
Oh.
I'm not looking at anything. I'm just asking
We-
about the,
We don't budget for it because.
no, I know you don't
yeah.
budget for it. I'm saying like as far as money that's brought in.
Yeah, so
Is
like,
that in a separate line at all?
where I'm showing, it is a separate line. If you're looking at the profit and loss statement, you'll see it. But we don't budget for it because I don't want to anticipate that we're charging people for those things, And, in the end, it all rolls into what is our net income number for the year. So we were down 130,000 last year.
Caitlin, can I ask, and I don't know if you have the answer, maybe Commissioner Collins, maybe Commissioner Canzero. Last year, we put money aside for potential lawsuits against the delta between market value and seizure. Do you have any idea what, what we've paid out or where we've gone with that money?
Counselors, that was through law department, I believe. So I can certainly check with Sue Katzoff. I do not believe that we've had a case that we've paid out that's from
So-
a challenge standpoint, but I do know
Yeah.
that you've had some that people inquired about it.
Yeah, so there's really kind of two things we're looking at. When that new law went into effect, from that point forward, there was a claims process, and potentially we would be paying out if we calculated that there was surplus proceeds. What you're talking about is people prior to that point that are within the 3-year statute of limitations, and they might have sued the city?
Correct.
Okay, that I'm not aware of. That would be a question for
think
Sue.
anyone did.
But for the,
But moving forward, we're going to have to factor that into our budget.
And that's where I think Caitlin and Sue Katzoff are collectively our brains on this, but I'll reach out to Corporation Counsel now.
Well,
with
I
that
thought
question.
we did factor it into the budget last year with 300 or 350.
well, I want to reiterate the distinction. So after that new law went into place,
Yes.
these people have an opportunity to file a claim. So everybody going forward,
Yes.
if they filed a claim, we're going to do an appraisal. 2 of those cases in the past year have had surplus.
Okay.
And we are in the process of working through that right now, but it's a very small amount of money. That's what you had budgeted that 300 for, was to cover that.
Yep.
There is possible exposure to liability from people that had been foreclosed on prior to the change in the law that were never given an opportunity to file a claim. If they're within that 3-year statute of limitations, I know you were concerned that there might be some lawsuits.
Yes.
And on that side, I'm not sure
Okay.
what has happened.
There was a special object budgeted last year. It's Landbank Seizures Fund for $300,000, and then we have $100K budgeted for fiscal year '26, and that's in the city's special object fund.
And that's what I'm looking at. I just kind of wanted to make sure that all the,
But that 300 is for people who have filed a claim, not for the 3 years prior to the law change.
Got it.
Okay.
okay, thank you.
So with the 600 properties we have, do we have a plan? 800, 650 vacant lots? Are we like a plan? Is that part of some of the development?
Yeah, I've actually attached a newspaper article here that was recently written by Jeremy Boyer about all of the site assembly that we've been doing. So of those 650, about half of them are currently buildable. There's a whole bunch of others that we're working on making them buildable if we know the lot next door is seizable, for example, and we can merge them together. So we're constantly working on expanding our portfolio of building sites that are ready to go. And because we have more shovel-ready sites than any other land bank in New York State, we have brought home more grant money than any other land bank, and there are 31 now across the state. And then when funding programs come out, we're ready to go and apply immediately. So this article is talking about the fact that we have properties under contract with La Liga, Jubilee Homes, Home Headquarters, Habitat for Humanity, and Shetty's Southside Growth Initiative, I'm sure I got the name wrong, because there are a lot of housing programs from New York State right now and a lot of funding available, and we have the sites to make those projects happen. So I know that there's been a lot of concern for many, many years about why is the land bank sitting on all these properties. It's so that when the opportunity comes up, we are ready to strike.
So say with Jubilee Home and Home Headquarter, with their plan of building single homes and stuff like that, do you just release the lot to them, or do they actually give you a plan and a timeline
So
before you release it?
Yeah, they will show us what they're planning to build, how they're going to be financing it, and if we accept their offer, it's contingent upon them actually being awarded that financing. So like Habitat, for example, we just recently gave them a contract so that they can go to the state and say that we have site control over these 10 properties and apply for grant money. Once the state actually awards them the grant money, then we will convey the lots to them. So if for some reason that application was denied, they would be back on the market for somebody else to build on.
Okay.
Are any of these in the floating zones?
The state will not fund any new construction in floodplains, so none of these sites that we're planning for new construction are in floodplains.
So you don't actually sell it to them yet? It's contingent upon the acceptance, and then you will proceed?
Yes, it's
so
contingent.
if it does falls through, the contract is void, basically?
Yes.
Okay.
Get a question on 7070 or interest income, 1800 Lodi Street. Are we still getting, so we're getting interest income?
So usually when we sell a property, we'll sell it for $25,000. And they show up with a check on the closing day and we get paid. They might have cash. They might be using a loan from a mortgage from a lender, in which case, either way, it doesn't matter. We walk away with the sales proceeds on that day. There have been 2 or 3 instances where instead of having the full amount due at closing, we have held the mortgage note, and 1800 Lodi and 313 Rosemont are 2 of them that are currently paying.
Oh, so he's, the owner there is still paying then?
Yes, he's making us monthly mortgage payments.
Okay, because I was looking up the property ownership though. Okay. All right,
Yes,
thank
that
you.
one is owned by Yeshua Restoration Ministries.
Yeah, it's under Louis Vincegaro.
Yep,
His ministries.
Is that just because they couldn't get conventional financing?
yeah.
Okay.
We try to be flexible.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and these 2 have a great track record of paying on time.
Question. Just for clarification, Caitlin, so say a land bank takes a house, sells it. Where does that money go?
That goes back into our general operating budget and our
Land bank
unrestricted funds.
General operating budget.
Yes, so I said earlier, it costs us about $2 million just to keep the land bank running each year, and we generate about half of that through sales, and the other half, we have to ask the city and the county for help.
Okay. So technically, when you take a property from a resident, the city doesn't get anything back until there is a final sale.
So we don't take properties from residents. The
No.
city does.
I'm just saying we
Yeah.
give once the process takes place and it's in your hand.
So when the city forecloses on a property, you are taking ownership of it. You sell it to us for $326. We go in, we clean out all the trash and debris, we draft a scope of work for what renovations are needed to bring it up to code, and we list it for sale. When we do ultimately sell it, that sales revenue stays with the land bank and covers about half of our annual operating expenses.
Okay, so if it stay before land bank, so if it stay with land bank for 3 years, at that point, the city is basically not getting anything out of that.
Even if we sold it the next day, the city doesn't get anything. You sell it to us for $326, then we go do our thing. That sales revenue will stay with the land bank, but that's not enough to keep the land bank operating each year. So if we didn't keep that money, I would be asking you for $2 million a year instead of 1.2.
You're trying to say you're not getting any taxes, is that what you're saying?
Right, that's what I'm trying to get at. And
Well,
until somebody
Buys.
buys it from land bank, then it goes back to the tax roll.
I
That's
guess
when the city actually started recuperating anything from
Yeah,
that property.
I guess I misunderstood if you were talking about sales revenue or tax revenue. Yes, when we sell it, it becomes taxable and starts generating tax revenue for the city.
Okay, that's where I was going.
While we hold it, it is tax exempt. We're able to operate in a pretty lean way because of a lot of our tax exemptions, and we're exempt from deed recording charges and mortgage recording charges. So, yeah, it costs a lot of money to keep the land bank running every year, but we're trying to operate as efficiently and leanly as we can, and that tax exemption is a big part of that.
Yeah, so on average, how long do you hold that property on average?
I would have to go back and check our database to tell you. You know, some of them sell within 60 days. Some of them we have for 10 years. It depends on whether or not that property is developable, what condition it's in.
Okay.
So, councilors, could I just add something to those 2 points, if I may? So to the second one of the things that's come out of the housing strategy work is that we have asked that the land bank consider holding some properties longer so that they can amass properties in a way where we can actually have a larger impact within the neighborhood. So that's a request that's come from the city to the land bank. The other part of it on the revenue and cost part, before we had the land bank, our only way to sell the properties was through the auction, go to the highest bidder. We had a tremendous amount of speculation that used a tremendous amount of city resources while it sat. So our mowing line would be significantly higher. Our general code enforcement line would be significantly higher. There certainly would be impact on police and fire if these properties were not going to the land bank, but instead we had to dispossess in the way that we used to.
I understand the benefit. I just wanted to understand the mechanics behind.
We do have to go to another meeting soon, so if I just wanted to ask, say out of 150 houses, how many of them have holdover tenants, and how many have you had to do the assist relocation?
About 10 of them are occupied right now. 4 of those we are working on offering relocation assistance. The others are working on buying the property and getting mortgage qualified, so we're engaged, we're entered into a lease with them in the meantime.
Okay, all right.
And my last question, so out of the 650 vacant lots, right, so that means we're not getting taxes. Can you, not now, whenever you get a chance, can you send us like where they are, like available, like where the vacant lots is, because that's a lot. I mean,
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what you're getting at there, though, because
I just want to know where they are.
we will send you a map of where they
Yes,
all are.
yes.
There's also a
Well-
map here in your,
Out of those 600, were they all vacant when you got them, or did they become vacant because you demoed?
it's a mix.
Okay.
So that would be, that, it's really for numbers wise, not really anything new. I just want to know where they are, and it has a lot to do with.
Yeah, they're not generating taxes now, but they also weren't before you foreclosed on them.
Right, no, I get that.
Okay.
No, I'm not questioning that, but
Okay.
I would like to know where they
Okay.
are. Yes.
I just want to reiterate that our willingness to go ahead and proactively take title to properties has enabled us to assemble more shovel-ready sites than any other land bank in the state, and we're going to see a boom of new construction happening in the next year. One example is in your packet here, a map of the Near West Side that shows 35 sites where we are working with Jubilee to build new homes and 10 where Home Headquarters is working to build new homes. This has involved dozens of demolitions and re-subdivisions and lot line adjustments to make these shovel-ready. It takes 8 years to pull together a cluster of 45 sites like this. So I know people... Yes, I know people get aggravated by looking at how many properties are in the land bank's inventory, but the site assembly work is slow and obnoxious, and there's a reason why private developers won't do it.
I don't think, so just so you're clear,
Yeah.
we're not, no one's, I think you do a great job. There's no one's questioning that. We're just trying to figure out like what's available out there and the process and how we can figure, multiple things. So no defense, we're not coming at the land bank by no means. There's none of that. Only thing that I ever had an issue with, it was this monthly fee some of the people are calling me about, and even the contractors are calling me because they're like, listen, there's some things that we can't get, we're behind, we're doing other work. That's my only issue, but there's no defense here, none.
Anecdotally, I would just add too that we have started getting a little bit of interest in private,
Yeah.
to people wanting to, individuals wanting to, build homes, which hasn't happened yet, but that would be, kind of a first.
We have some property of one person is using as a garden.
We have about 15 community
Yes,
gardens
thank
that
you
are
for
leasing
that.
land
And
from us.
then when we got down that messy Easy Cafe, so hopefully we can find a.
Artie must be getting red peppers out of that garden, that's why he's mentioning.
Well, he does grow peppers.
Yeah,
We're good.
yes.
All right, okay. All right, I'm going to call this meeting adjourned. No one has any more questions? All right. So
Thank
adjourned.
you.
Thank you.